The Empty Chair, the Grand Galactic Council, was the most powerful organization in the known universe. It ruled over thousands of star systems, bringing together the most intelligent and advanced species in the galaxy. Every species that had reached space was given a seat, a place to have a voice, to be part of the great decisions that shaped the future of the galaxy. But one seat had always remained empty. At the far end of the Great Hall, surrounded by the proud banners of the Council's oldest members, stood a chair meant for Earth. It was untouched, waiting, as if expecting someone who would never arrive. Many had asked why. The Council had sent invitations. Humans were known to exist. Their world had been observed. Their technology was advanced enough to qualify. Yet they never came. They never answered. Some species whispered rumors. Perhaps humans are extinct. Maybe they are too weak to take part in galactic affairs. They must still be fighting each other. A primitive species unworthy of sitting among us. Others believed something darker. What if they refuse to join because they think they are better than us? What if they know something we do not? But in the end, the galaxy did what it always did with an unknown mystery. It ignored it. There were wars to fight, alliances to form, trade to manage. The empty seat became nothing more than a silent question, one that no one cared to answer anymore. Until the distress signal came. It was a simple message, barely a whisper in the great void of space. Help, Earth, in danger. The moment the signal was detected, panic spread through the Council. Who had sent it? Why now, after centuries of silence? The Supreme Chancellor, an ancient being with golden scales and 6 glowing eyes, immediately called an emergency meeting. The representatives of the most powerful species gathered, their voices tense. This could be a trap, or it could be an opportunity. If Earth is truly in danger, they might finally accept our help. Or they might finally reveal what they have been hiding. For the first time in history, the Council agreed on something. They needed to find out the truth. An expedition was formed. The best warriors, diplomats, and scientists from various species were chosen. Their mission was simple: travel to Earth, investigate the situation, and uncover the reason behind humanity's silence. As the Grand Fleet prepared to depart, every eye in the Council chamber turned to the empty chair once more. For the first time in centuries, Earth had spoken, and the galaxy was about to find out why it had remained silent for so long. The mission to Earth, the Grand Galactic Fleet, moved like a silent storm through the void of space. Ships of all shapes and sizes, from the sleek silver crafts of the Valkyrie to the enormous warships of the Dresneri, traveled together toward a single destination, Earth. The journey was filled with tension. Even the most battle-hardened warriors whispered among themselves, their voices filled with uncertainty. No one had ever made contact with humans. They had never responded to diplomatic messages, never engaged in trade, never expanded beyond their own solar system. And yet, they existed. Now, after centuries of silence, Earth had sent a distress signal. But why? Approaching the Sol system. As the fleet neared the Sol system, they expected to see signs of human expansion. Satellites, colonies, defense stations. Instead, space was empty. No ships, no outposts, nothing. It was unnatural. Even the smallest spacefaring civilizations built way stations and monitoring posts near their homeworld. But Earth's system was eerily quiet. The lead ship, a massive diplomatic cruiser from the Zorvan Empire, initiated a scan of the system. The results were impossible. No transmissions, no energy readings from space stations, no artificial structures beyond the planet itself. It was as if humanity had never left their world. The Great Barrier. Then, the fleet detected something else, a planetary defense field. A massive energy barrier surrounded Earth, invisible to the naked eye, but powerful enough to stop any unauthorized entry. The fleet's scientists analyzed it, their instruments struggling to make sense of the technology. It was unlike anything in the known galaxy. "This is beyond us," one of them finally admitted. "The energy output is incomprehensible." The warships powered their weapons, prepared to break through if necessary. But before any action could be taken, something happened that made every alien on board freeze in shock. The barrier opened. A single passage appeared, leading directly toward Earth. It was not an invitation. It was a challenge. The Supreme Commander of the fleet hesitated for only a moment before giving the order. "Proceed, but stay alert." One by one, the ships entered the unknown, landing on Earth. As the fleet descended toward the planet, their scanners struggled to process what they were seeing. Earth was perfect. The cities were pristine, untouched by war or decay. Skyscrapers stretched toward the heavens, glowing with energy signatures the aliens couldn't comprehend. The oceans were clear, the forests untouched, the air free of pollution. But there was no movement, no vehicles, no people walking in the streets, no sign of life anywhere. It was a ghost world. The landing party stepped onto the surface, their boots pressing against the smooth roads of an empty metropolis. They expected to hear the distant hum of technology, the whispers of machines keeping the city alive. Instead, there was only silence. Then, a voice. "You were not invited." The aliens spun around, weapons raised. But there was no one there. The voice had come from everywhere, from the buildings, from the air itself. A cold shiver ran through the commanders. This was no ordinary world. And they were not alone. Landing on a forbidden world, the air on Earth felt wrong. It wasn't dangerous or unbreathable. Far from it. In fact, it was too perfect. The atmosphere was balanced at an ideal ratio for most known species. The temperature remained stable, as if controlled by an unseen force. But what sent chills down the spines of the alien explorers was the silence. The landing teams spread out cautiously, moving through the empty streets of a city that should not have been empty. Towers of glass and metal stretched into the sky, glowing softly with unknown energy. Parks were lush and green, untouched by time. It was as if the entire planet had been abandoned in an instant. Yet, the scans told a different story. There were people here. They were just hidden. The vanishing act. "Something isn't right," muttered Captain Vecron of the Dresneri Empire, his reptilian eyes scanning the buildings. "This city isn't abandoned. It's occupied." But where were the humans? Sensors detected millions of life signs, but when the teams looked in those directions, there was nothing there. One scientist, a frail Zorvan with silver tendrils instead of hair, hesitantly reached out toward a doorway. The moment his fingers brushed the air in front of it, something terrifying happened. The street shifted. Buildings flickered, the entire environment glitching like a broken simulation. The smooth roads became cracked. The skyscrapers, once shining, now looked ancient and weathered. The clear sky darkened, revealing a web of pulsating red symbols hanging in the air, stretching endlessly across the city. They had been walking inside an illusion. A voice from the shadows. A deep, resonant voice echoed across the empty city. "You were warned." The ground trembled. The illusion collapsed completely. And for the first time, the alien explorers saw the truth. Humans were here, but they were not ordinary anymore. The Watchers of Earth. From the shadows of the buildings, figures began to emerge. They were human in shape, but something was different. Their eyes glowed with unnatural light. Their movements were too fluid, too precise. It was as if they were not just flesh and blood, but something more. One of them stepped forward, a tall figure, wrapped in a cloak that shimmered like shifting stars. His gaze held no fear, no curiosity, only quiet amusement. "You were warned," he repeated, his voice neither hostile nor welcoming. "And yet you came." Captain Vecron stepped forward, his clawed hand resting on the hilt of his plasma blade. "We received your distress signal." The human tilted his head slightly. "Did you?" The word sent a chill through the explorers. Had the signal been a trap? A warning to the galaxy? The human raised a single hand. The sky above them rippled like water, shifting and reforming. And then they saw it. The fleet, their mighty warships that had hovered in orbit, were frozen. Not destroyed, not attacked, just stopped. Time around them had halted, locking them in place like statues, a power that no species in the galaxy should have had. The human finally spoke again. "You misunderstand why our seat was empty." His glowing eyes met each of the aliens. "We did not stay away because we were weak." His voice became quieter, yet somehow more powerful. "We stayed away because you were not ready." A pause. Then he smiled. "And you are still not." The explorers felt something shift in the air, as if reality itself was folding around them. And then everything went black. Cliffhanger and next steps. This part intensifies the mystery while revealing the truth about Earth's illusion, the hidden humans, and their terrifying power. It ends with a powerful hook that will keep the audience desperate to know what happens next. The Guardians of Earth. Darkness swallowed the alien explorers. Not the absence of light, but something deeper, something alive. It wrapped around them, silent and unrelenting, pressing against their minds. Then, suddenly, light returned. They found themselves standing in a completely different place. The empty city was gone. Instead, they stood within an enormous chamber of shifting energy and infinite stars. It was as if the very fabric of space had been shaped into walls and ceilings. Strange symbols floated in the air, shifting and rearranging themselves in patterns the aliens couldn't comprehend. At the center of it all stood the human, or at least, that's what they thought he was. His form still resembled a man, but his presence was something far beyond it. His glowing eyes weren't just eyes. They were windows into something vast, something the alien minds struggled to comprehend. He looked at them with a calm expression, as if studying them, judging them. "You should not have come." His voice carried weight, not just sound, but something that pressed into their very thoughts. Captain Vecron, ever the warrior, took a step forward. He had faced countless battles, conquered entire worlds. He would not be intimidated. "Who are you?" His voice was steady, but the edges of fear cracked beneath it. The human smiled. "We are the Watchers, the last of those who remember." The alien diplomats exchanged confused glances. "Remember what?" asked the Zorvan scientist. The human's smile faded. He lifted his hand, and with a single motion, the chamber around them shifted. Suddenly, they were no longer in the chamber. They were in space, floating above a battlefield that had taken place thousands of years ago. They saw entire civilizations burn. World-shattering weapons tore through planets like paper. Armies that had once been powerful were reduced to nothing in moments. The galaxy had been at war, but this was a war they had never learned about. Then they saw it, Earth. But it wasn't silent. It wasn't empty. It was fighting. Alone, against an enemy that the galaxy had long forgotten. The Lost War. The aliens watched in horror as a force unlike anything they had ever known descended upon Earth. It was not a species. It was not an empire. It was something else. Something that should not exist. It consumed entire fleets in moments. It bent reality, twisted time, shattered the very laws of physics. And humanity fought it. Not with fleets or armies, but with something deeper, something older. The battle raged for centuries. Earth stood alone while the rest of the galaxy remained oblivious, untouched. Then, suddenly, it was over. The enemy was gone. And so were the humans. The truth that terrified the galaxy. The vision faded. The aliens found themselves back in the chamber, their minds reeling. The human watched them in silence, allowing the truth to sink in. Earth had never been weak. It had never been isolated. It had been recovering, rebuilding, preparing. The seat at the Galactic Council had remained empty because humanity had evolved past the need for politics. They no longer played the games of lesser species. They had seen the truth of the universe. And now, they were its silent guardians. The war you saw, the human finally spoke, was never meant to be remembered. The aliens trembled. The weight of the revelation was crushing. Then, "Why show us?" whispered the Dresneri captain. The human's eyes gleamed. "Because it is coming back." Silence. Then, alarms blared through the chamber. A distant echo of something ancient and hungry rumbled through reality itself. And the galaxy finally understood. They had never feared the wrong thing. They had feared the wrong species. Cliffhanger and next steps. This part shatters the audience's expectations, revealing why humanity remained hidden, what war they fought, and why they are feared. The final twist raises the stakes massively, setting up the next chapter for an even bigger reveal. The truth that shook the galaxy. The alarms blared like a warning from the fabric of reality itself. The chamber trembled, not from an explosion, not from an attack, but from something far worse. Something awakening. The alien diplomats and warriors felt it deep inside their bones, a vibration that reached beyond sound, beyond thought. It was like the universe itself had taken a breath. The human, the watcher, stood unmoving. His glowing eyes reflected something distant, something vast and terrible. "You have seen the past," he said, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. "Now you must understand the future." Then, with a mere gesture of his hand, reality shifted again. The cracks in the universe, the Grand Galactic Council, thousands of light years away, had no idea what was coming. The most powerful empires sat in their polished halls, arguing over politics, trade routes, and meaningless conflicts. They believed themselves the rulers of the galaxy. They had no idea that something older than their species, older than their sun, was watching them. Then, without warning, it began. Across the galaxy, stars flickered. Not just one or two, millions. Entire sectors went dark, as if something had swallowed the light. Space itself cracked. Not metaphorically, physically. Observatories across the universe captured impossible images. Fractures in reality, splitting the void of space like broken glass, and from those cracks, something began to seep through. Something hungry. You were never supposed to see this. Back on Earth, the aliens gasped as the Watcher showed them the unseen forces at work. "The war never ended," he said. "We merely delayed the inevitable." Captain Vecron, the proud warrior of the Dresneri, clenched his fists. "What are those things?" The Watcher's expression darkened. "Not things. Concepts." He turned his gaze toward the floating visions of the cracks in space. "They are the reason we fought. They are the reason we chose silence. They are the reason you never saw our seat filled." One of the aliens, a scientist from the Zorvan Empire, stared at the horrifying sight. "You mean you were protecting us?" The Watcher let out a quiet, humorless chuckle. "Protecting you?" He tilted his head. "No, you were never in danger." The aliens froze. "We were protecting them." A long silence stretched between them. "Protecting them," one of the diplomats whispered, their voice barely above a breath. The Watcher's eyes burned brighter. "Yes, we kept them contained. We locked them away, buried them so deep that the universe forgot they even existed. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. But now you have disturbed the silence." The final warning. The chamber trembled again, and the vision faded. The aliens were back on Earth, standing in the very same empty city. But now they understood why it was empty. Humanity had never been absent. They had never been defeated. They had been watching, waiting, preparing. The Watcher took a step toward them, and though he looked human, they now saw the truth. He was something far beyond that. "Leave this planet," he ordered. "Return to your empires. Tell them what you have seen. Tell them what you have done." The aliens hesitated. "And if we refuse?" Vecron asked, still gripping his weapon. The Watcher smiled. Then you will learn why our seat was always empty. Cliffhanger and next steps. This part *** raises the stakes even higher, revealing that Earth wasn't protecting itself. It was containing something far worse. The final warning is clear. Humanity is more than just another species. They are the last line of defense between the galaxy and a threat no one else can comprehend. A warning to the universe. The wind howled through the empty city, carrying a sound that wasn't quite natural. It wasn't just air shifting between the massive buildings. It was something deeper, something woven into the fabric of existence itself. The alien delegation, once proud, once confident, now stood frozen under the burning gaze of the Watcher. They had come expecting to find a primitive world, a weak species in need of the Galactic Council's guidance. Instead, they had found the keepers of an ancient war. Captain Vecron clenched his jaw, his reptilian scales tightening as his instincts screamed at him. This is not an enemy we can fight. The Zorgan scientist beside him whispered, barely able to form words. You contained them. The Watcher's expression didn't change. We did. For how long? Long before your species learned to speak. The weight of those words crushed the air between them. The Dresneri were one of the oldest known species in the galaxy. The Zorvan had recorded history stretching back 100 millennia. And yet, humanity had been fighting a war before any of them even existed. The unseen chains. The Watcher lifted a hand, and the air around them rippled like water. Above the city, the sky split open. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't destruction. It was a glimpse of the truth. Beyond the blue of Earth's atmosphere, beyond the stars, they saw the chains. Massive, cosmic structures, woven not from metal or energy, but from concepts, from reality itself. They stretched beyond sight, wrapping around distant galaxies, binding something that should never be free. These are the chains that hold them, the Watcher said, his voice devoid of pride. And they are breaking. One of the alien diplomats stumbled backward. Why? Why now? The Watcher's gaze burned into them. Because you came looking for us. The words hit harder than any weapon. For centuries, humanity had stayed silent, not out of weakness, but out of necessity. They had hidden not because they feared the galaxy, but because the galaxy could not handle what they were guarding. But now, the chains were cracking, and the enemy was stirring once more. The illusion of power. Vecron, always the warrior, tightened his grip on his plasma blade. His instincts screamed for him to act, to take control of the situation. But for the first time in his life, he felt small. If these creatures are so powerful, he growled, how did you stop them before? The Watcher turned his gaze toward the sky, his expression unreadable. At a cost you cannot imagine. The silence stretched long between them. Then, finally, the Zorvan scientist asked the question none of them wanted to ask. Can they be stopped again? The Watcher looked at them, truly seeing them for what they were, children standing at the edge of a battlefield far older than their existence. That, he said, depends on you. The final decision. The aliens exchanged uneasy glances. They had come to Earth seeking answers. Now, they had a choice. Return to the Galactic Council and warn them, or pretend they had never come, and let the storm arrive without preparation. Captain Vecron took a slow breath, his mind racing. The Council would never believe them. The empires of the galaxy were too caught in their own wars, too arrogant to understand the scale of the threat. But it didn't matter what the Council thought. The truth was coming, whether they were ready or not. He turned to the Watcher. What do you need us to do? For the first time, the Watcher smiled. Survive. The ground beneath them shook violently. The sky above cracked like glass. And then, the war began again. Cliffhanger and next steps. This part brings everything to the brink of war. The aliens now realized that humanity was never absent, They were the only ones standing between the galaxy and its destruction. The final choice sets up the next part for an epic confrontation. The Council's realization. The sky shattered. Not like glass, not like an explosion, but like something tearing through the fabric of reality itself. The alien delegation barely had time to react before the Watcher raised his hand. A pulse of unseen energy surged outward, freezing them in place, not as an attack, but as protection. Beyond the fractured heavens, something was waking up. Something that should never wake. The Galactic Council in chaos. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, the Grand Galactic Council was in turmoil. The delegates of the most powerful empires stood in disbelief as reports flooded in. Stars were vanishing. Entire systems going dark in an instant. Energy distortions rippled across the galaxy. Space-time was folding in ways that defied physics. Deep space probes stopped transmitting. Not destroyed, simply erased, as if they had never existed. The Supreme Chancellor of the Council, a being who had ruled for over 1,000 years, slammed his fist onto the gray table. "What is happening?" His voice echoed across the chamber. No one had an answer. Until a trembling officer burst into the hall, his face drained of all color. "Yes, sir, it's Earth." The chamber fell silent. The Supreme Chancellor narrowed his eyes. Earth? That primitive world. The one that never took its seat. The officer swallowed hard. "It's not primitive." He hesitated, as if struggling to find the right words. "And they're not silent anymore." The Council's most powerful leaders, the rulers of empires spanning entire star clusters, stared in disbelief as the officer placed a holographic recording before them. It was a message, and it had been sent by the humans. The warning from Earth. The message began with a man standing in darkness. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't even wearing a uniform. And yet, the moment he spoke, the galaxy listened. "You have spent centuries wondering why we never took our seat." His voice was calm, yet there was something infinite behind it. "You assumed we were weak. You assumed we were afraid. You assumed we were gone." The man stepped forward, and behind him, the stars themselves seemed to shift. "The truth is, you were never meant to know." The council members leaned in, their eyes wide with unease. "You believe yourselves rulers of the galaxy, but you are wrong." The man's expression remained unreadable. "You were allowed to believe that. You were given the illusion of control." The hologram flickered, and suddenly, the cracks in space were visible. The unseen horrors pressing against reality. The hidden war that had never truly ended. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Some leaders gasped in horror. Others denied what they were seeing. But the human's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "We have contained them for longer than your empires have existed. But now, because of your interference, the chains are breaking." A dark silence settled over the chamber. And then the final words came. "If you are wise, you will prepare." The man's eyes glowed. "If you are not, you will not survive." Then, the message ended. The council's breaking point. Panic erupted. "This is a human trick." One delegate roared. "A lie to gain power." Then explained the disappearing stars. Another snapped. The Supreme Chancellor stared at the hologram, his mind racing. Humans had never asked to join the council. They had never sent diplomats. They had never fought for a seat. And now, he understood why. The realization was terrifying. They had never needed to. They had been watching, waiting, protecting. And now, the war was coming back. The Chancellor took a deep breath. His voice, when he finally spoke, was grave and final. "Summon every fleet." A stunned silence filled the room. "But sir," the Supreme Chancellor slammed his fist onto the table. "Do it, because if the humans are telling the truth." His voice shook with the weight of a terrible realization. "Then our entire galaxy is already lost." Final impact and closing thoughts. This final part ties everything together, raising the stakes to galactic levels. The aliens now realize that Earth's absence was never ignorance, it was strategy. The war they never knew about is coming back, and now the entire galaxy must decide: fight alongside the humans or be consumed.